Nah, because we not inside. You just gonna talk.
Alright.
We on live.
Greetings, global listeners and watchers. Hey man, this is Blase Radio. That's wariku, your enigmatic host. And this year, 2025, we're taking the spring and the summer for ourselves. We had a long winter break and we have gathered momentum now and is ready to move further up the rung, further up the ladder. Okay? Closer to the higher heights, the highest regions we were heading for. And so we have really collected a lot of information.
Looking at that. Yeah.
Yeah, we have collected a lot of information from our neighboring islands. We have a lot of Caribbean islands, like, you know, some 30 odd islands with flags of their own. And so those are all our responsibility to make sure that we come to one voice in terms of our welfare and our future. You got to save ourselves from annihilation. And so I am placed here in a position to bring, the latest information from the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated. It is necessary for the black people to apply for a local. Any 25 people that are black, that admit that they're from the black race, and is willing to really work in adherence to the Constitution, you're good to go. And this will offer you a certain amount of not just your sovereignty, but establish yourself as a equal rights citizen, not a third class citizen. And so I am going to start with Jamaica as my main theme and topic because then that's where I'm from. However, I'm going to expand and extend my reach to, outreach to places like New York here, where I am right now. I'm here in Brooklyn, Canarsie to be exact. Brooklyn, New York. However, it has 5 boroughs, and we have connection with these 5 boroughs. And we're mainly linking with Jamaica, Panama, Shashamane, Ghana, Liberia, for now. We will be expanding and extending ourselves weekly. But we want to start with those basic geographical locations. As I said before, Jamaica, we can include, yes, Tobago. We can include Barbados, but we haven't really solidified our connection as yet. So we'll start with Jamaica. And as the program goes on, we'll move to the other places like Brooklyn here in New York and Panama. And as we go along week by week, we will extend our reach. Our outreach program is very wide, but we want to start simple. Simplicity is really good in some cases. And so, Jamaica. This is an election year for Jamaica. And we know that the party that's in power is now called the Jamaica Labour Party. The founder of that party was Alexander Bustamante. He was eventually knighted by the Queen as Sir Alexander Bustamante. And he had a trade union named the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union. That is where he got most of his acumen and support from. And his opposition was, at the time, was Norman Manley, his cousin, who also had a trade union, the National Workers Union. So those are the people who were supposed to be representing the working class who were unionized. And, the poor people in Jamaica didn't figure in that equation. it was a social climbing effort on most people because we were just coming out of colonization. So everyone is trying to climb the ladder of the society to get into higher places. Bustamante didn't appear to us to be a very well educated man. Norman Manley was exceptionally educated. Yes, he got really university education. And he was also an attorney at law, and a good one at that. And the rivalry came to a very, very tight position in 1960 when the effort to become what they call an independent country was made. In the last program I indicated some of the things that took place, but I will repeat myself. There was first a vote for who would be the first premier, and that was Norman Manley. And they were summoned because in the majority wasn't very much, so that it didn't seem favorable for Norman Manley to lead us into what they call independence. So the Queen summoned them both to England and they thrashed it out. And Norman Manley, with his gentlemanship, subdued himself after getting a mandate to run the country to what they call a referendum. This referendum was to make a decision as to whether they would continue with the federation or not. So the 10 island federation. These 10 islands now had among them leaders who were qualified to be the first prime minister of the Caribbean Federation, which was Dr. Eric Williams from Trinidad, Dante Adams from Barbados, and Forbes Burnham, and the Indian, which his name was Jagan. Yes.
Camera, it's this way. Look at the
So
camera.
it happened that they voted for Eric Williams to be in charge of the federation, which was eventually dissolved because Jamaica copped out of that federation when the referendum resulted with Bustamante winning. So in 1961, when he was supposed to be one of the two, either president of the federation or the prime minister of Jamaica, he got none of them. Bustamante took the Jamaica general election, and as I said before, Eric Williams um, became the first man who was elected to lead the federation. So, having copped out of Jamaica having copped out of the federation, that dissolved the federation, and so he went on to, in 1962, on the first Monday of August, Jamaica was, the Union Jack, the British flag, red, white, and blue, was lowered, and the green, gold, and black flag of Jamaica was hoisted. And there was, enormous celebration. People expected great change for the better and so on. However, it turned out that the party that won the election was very much opposed to the socialist concept. They came with a capitalist concept of governance. And what we found out is that a capitalist country needs capital. It's based on credit. The citizens are supposed to get credit so that they can invest and so on, and, and pay their debts with interest. But the poor people didn't qualify. The poor people of Jamaica didn't qualify, and there was a 70% illiteracy. And so the poor had to really struggle and with defiance too, because the Bucky Master mentality was, strong inside the government, especially the police and the auxiliary forces that were used to keep law and order. I spent 2 years, as I said before, in a farmer program between the age of 18 and 20. I spent 2 years. I resigned after 2 years. But it was a lot of corruption, a lot of political maneuvering and social engineering. And so I started that because in the transformation between colonialism and post-colonialism, meaning after we were supposed to remove ourselves from the stigma of colonialism, instead of things improved, things got worse. I'll name you a few things that made me come to the conclusion. We had a reasonable, good railway system running. We had two trips to Montego Bay from Kingston each day. The morning train, which took all day to reach Montego Bay, and the evening train was called an excursion, meaning it didn't stop as long and at all stops. And so it still reached Montego Bay, close to the time when the train that was traveling all day reached. But that all day train was a real economic boost for the inner part of Jamaica, because the people were able to sell their wares and their agricultural products at the station, because the train would stay 10, 15 minutes and they would get to go to the windows of the train and sell. And it was very important to them, because that helped them, instead of going to the market, they could sell from these people who were traveling. And everyone looked forward to getting fresh fruits and vegetables from these people. And the Rastafari movement became more and more evident. Although the role of the Rastas were misinterpreted, the then government that run the country saw Rasta as miscreants who would stop the tourism industry from, being successful. On the contrary, the tourism and the tourists were attracted to the Rastafari movement, because then that was something unique, and people like to know about new things. And so yes, those who were alive at that time, would know that in the western part of Jamaica, like Negril, and in the center of the island, like St. Anne's, there were tourist industry. It didn't boom, but it did was an important part of our economy. And so let me broaden the scope of reasoning now. As ones and ones might know, and if you don't know, you should know now that the Maroons occupy several areas of Jamaica. And those that occupy the area in St. Elizabeth called Accompong Town actually had a treaty with the British government to possess certain lands as their own, which they still do until this day. It's become smaller and smaller. Yes, their rights have been abused, but they still have a gated community, and they still have their council of elders and have their elections regularly, and run an indigenous government, so to speak. Meaning, yes, they have their economy and they live a reasonable, substantially reasonable life, because I have been there over and over, and I don't see any hungry people walking around. I don't see a lot of sick people or any at all, really. So, yeah, if that can work for those people, then why is there's such an outcry by the poor in Jamaica. Well, as is known by some of us, Jamaica has per capita the most churches in the world. Yeah, we hit the Guinness Book of Record as having the most churches per capita in the world. Yes, Jamaica people are very church Catholic. Notice I say were. And the interior, the urban and areas were run by like the streets maintenance and sewage system and all these things were and the train system. They were run by the public works department, and those who weren't employed by that were employed by the post office or the street repairs or things like that. But there was not much industry, and land was not made available to the poor class. Families who, yes, we have an overhead there. Families who had land were getting smaller and smaller because then everyone was looking towards traveling to enhance their family back home and so on. The British opened their ports for the repairing of England because England was terribly damaged by World War II and they needed workers in large supplies. So Jamaica, especially Jamaica females, a lot of them traveled to England to mind white people, baby, and all that sort of stuff. And the brothers went and to do laborious work. So there was a change of currency from pounds when in 1962 the pounds were twice the American dollar. And in about 1967 they decided to change the currency to Jamaican dollars. And shit hit the fan because they were forced now to get loans from the, the, the worst kind of loan that you can be indebted to, where annually the interest that you pay, you're barely able to pay it, and you have to borrow every year to run your economy. And so the international body that does the loaning, they decide and dictate certain development or underdevelopment. And you had Eddie Siago, who was supposed to be a financial genius, some economic superstar. He actually engaged in putting at least 23 banks the last time I checked in Jamaica. So this capitalist island concept was working for only those who qualified for bank loans, which, as I said, 70% of the island was illiterate in 1961. So therefore, it was only those social climbers who were able to get loans to really invest in development or agriculture or anything like that. So we Rastafarians had to learn survival from a different level. We couldn't depend on jobs, so therefore we had to find other means. If you don't have a job, you can't rent a place, you can't take out a car, you can't do anything like that. So we had headed for the hills. Most of us who could. I wasn't able to head for the hills. I didn't know which hill to head for. How I was grown. I was born in Eastern Kingston, which is Kingston, as you know, is the capital city of Jamaica. I would say Kingston and St. Andrew because they merged as one. Kingston is just 10 square miles, while St. Andrew is a large parish. So they just join them and have one parish council, Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Council. And at age 8, when I reached Kingston, I, I went to Winner Road School, which was Range, and moving from that school, I went to St. George's College, which was a high-profile college because it was run by the Roman Catholics. The, the academic fees for a term was not as expensive as most others, but you benefited in being a Catholic. So my mother got me into the church, Holy Rosa Church, Winard Road, and I was baptized and called Paul. They give everyone who was baptized saint's name, which is that is a tradition of Ethiopia. Most of the Roman Catholic customs is a copy of the Ethiopian, which is the original Orthodox Hawidah Church. And so I've said all that to give one a scope of, as a Rastafarian, how we have managed to become a voice of the people. The strenuous tasks that one had to go through to survive may cause the Kingstonians who were exposed to more modernity than the rural people to become singers and players of instruments. The youths were really engaged in learning songs and learning to play the guitar and so on, and listening to good R&B music from America, Curtis Mayfield and all these guys, Temptations, and so on, and people, Brooke Brent and all these guys were their music, Spots Domino, all these music were played on the only radio station we had was called Radio Fusion, which the poor people could barely afford, but one radio Fusion would serve for a little community at the time until people it became affordable for some people, and they had this radio Fusion. Until other stations came in, we used to get ZQI from off the South American coast, and then we had the JBC, Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation, and then Radio Jamaica, and now it has grown to, the probably can find 20 radio stations in Jamaica. Well, we are going to be connecting mostly with Best FM and Roots FM for reasons that will become clear as we move along. Because then we will be showing you how defiant those who were supposed to support what we are doing, how defiant they have been, because then they have their own doctrine of where and how Jamaicans should go or what they should do, while the Rastafarians were intent on one thing, returning to Africa. We found that those who were Afrocentric were broken into various groups. We had the Peacemakers in Clarendon, which Reverend Claudius Henry was the head of. That property is still there, still run by his followers. He has passed away, but his followers are secure there. He had a brother James, who just finished a project trying to help the Haile Selassie School to be renovated so that the students could have a proper bathroom and toilet. Just 4 days ago they had the renovation. In my next program next week, we will give you an update on how successful it was. We want to hail up Empress Fanai, who has been doing tremendous work everywhere she goes. She's hard at work with Rasta TV and so on. So we're going to make the connection with Ras Ali Blas. I'll explain later why Ras Ali Blas' name comes up. He is involved in a project with the African Renaissance movement, which has appointed me, give me a responsibility to communicate on behalf of the Caribbean islands. So I started my island of birth, Jamaica, and he is there representing us right now. We also have another Jamaican in Panama, Asbuki. He and his wife, Empress Yuzuri, are doing a great work, I would say. You know, simple trash blind eyes. They're small and not really, you know, well established as yet, but they're improving rapidly. And with the help of Raf Sila and Empress Althea, with ancient Nyabingi, who we know for her from she was very young and she has been so consistent in her development. She plays a role there too, and yes, we are getting ourselves established in these places. I will refer to Shashamani, which, although the development plan was not executed, and that did compromise the land in certain form, but there's plenty of land. And those who occupy Shashamani have made it into a reasonable, habitable place. I want to hear up Brother Ruben Koch. I want to hear up Empress Anne-Marie Hibbert, and all the others who are there in Local 14, and the citizens of Shashaman. I want to hear of Rastagas Singh and others who are in Addis Ababa, and I would also like to heal up the brothers in New York, in Harlem, Ras Iron, who is representing the Nyabingi order at all events that are held in Harlem. He makes it his token habit every year to make sure the Marcus Garvey Park is recognized. He keeps events there, you know, especially Marcus Garvey's birthday, but other events too. So the chanting is continual. Every year we have these commemorative events, and the brothers in Brooklyn, well, I can say that there is a certain type of activity that went on which was not very pleasant, and so we have what would be called by some people a division. I'm not seeing it so much as a negative, because then both sides can get a local of the Ethiopian World Federation and carry on their work. We were about to acquire a building when all hell broke loose. So we don't want to see it as a division, because then that is over with and everybody has moved on. And we only want to open the eyes of our black people around the world that the Ethiopian World Federation enjoys favorable relations with the American government, so that our organization can operate here like any embassy or consulate, taking care of our people. And we must not allow the causing of pressure and the causing of prejudice. We do not take the things that His Majesty has provided for us. His chief physician and cousin, Manuku Ibayen, who matriculated for the Howard University, he was given the authority by His Majesty to start the Ethiopian World Federation in 1937, and he did so. It was finally established on the 25th of August in 1937, which we intend to celebrate this year. And we want to recognize some of the people who have been keeping community events and activities, business people, business entrepreneurs, like Udama, Brother Marlin, who supplies the community with health supplements good food, good medicines, and so on. He has been it for 27 years at one spot, so he's a well-established hardcore businessman. And we have the younger ones like Electric Space, there's a computer store doing quite well. We have Electric House further up the road on the same hand. We have Computer Dock on the same hand. And yes, we have Organic Love on the same hand. That's another vegetarian juice bar. And we have our brethren Kedar with his mobile unit further up Utica Avenue. So these are black people who are doing good, reasonably good business and who are constant. They have been at it, and I relate to them in terms of getting them interested in moving one step further up the ladder. That is to have their, community advertise the Ethiopian World Federation so that black people can, they correlate online. You can join groups. You can get the Constitution online to read, and you can go to workshops to understand how it is executed. And we have an annual convention this year. Last year we had it down in a small island in the French territory, Martinique. The year before that we had it in Addis Ababa. And this year we are going to South Africa. Last week I wasn't sure where it would be in South Africa. I think I mentioned Johannesburg tentatively, but I am certain now it's going to be Cape Town. It's going to be in Cape Town, and I know people who have booked their tickets already for that venture, the annual convention. So black people, you have no excuse. Any 25 group can put themselves together, go online, get the application form, make the application, and within 2 months you should get some strong reply once you fill out the form properly. And you will feel totally different when you really embrace this organization, because you can see wherein you have certain rights that are guaranteed. You move motions and vote on motions just like any other parliamentary body. And yes, you can start businesses and so on. And we have some plans that we need to unfold. But I shouldn't say but, and we are making an extreme effort to get the right people to run the organization. Because that's what is not said. Get the right people. If you don't have the right people, you cannot get the desired result. Right? So we are within a short distance to getting ourselves centralized, because then we are using the network, the internet, to really establish our movements and to get our people up to date and informed as what direction to take at this crucial time, as it's becoming obvious to everyone's awareness that it is a crucial time. And His Majesty warned us about saving ourselves from annihilation. And we have gathered information that shows that yes, there are plans being made to reduce our population. And so with that, we would like to really close off today, and next week we'll have our music, and we will have our selector Golden Kid, and we'll have our other brethren Kingman to conduct the interview. So give thanks to our global listeners, and let the words of final mountain and teach and final Irish be black kept within thy sight with the Rastafari, strengthen thy redeemer, who live and reign in thy hearts and thoughts, considering. He's blessed and worthy to be praised. Give thanks. Stepping out, over and out.